Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial bite for Oxygen Not Included, which is a complete guide to sour gas boilers.
Video này là dành cho những ai đang quan tâm đến việc đi du học thạc sĩ tại Úc nhưng mà chưa biết nên chọn trường hay là chọn ngành như thế nào.
Making it infinitely sustainable and
Video này là dành cho những ai đang quan tâm đến việc đi du học thạc sĩ tại Úc nhưng mà chưa biết nên chọn trường hay là chọn ngành như thế nào để có.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial bite for Oxygen Not Included, which is all about petroleum boilers. This is an advanced and usually later game build for boiling oil directly into petroleum using
mưa à? Giờ mưa to hết.
Đây đang mưa rào, như kiểu mưa rào, trong kiểu mưa rộng, mưa từ 1 rưỡi giờ.
Ngon.
Tôi cũng phải vào mùa mưa nên 29 rồi thì 29/3.
a heat source. I'm going to explain the full process and why it's so good, then explain how to build and run them. So let's jump right into the process, which starts with 3 oil wells and oil reservoirs. I explained these in their own tutorial bite, and they will take 1 kg per second of water each to make a full pipe of 10 kg per second of oil. Now by using the petroleum boiler, this makes 10 kg per second of petroleum, converting all the mass. This is unlike the oil refinery building, which loses half, and it will shortly become clear why.
Cái của nó cũng 3 thang mà nó thuốc bệnh thì chắc là nó đắt hơn thì nó bảo là thuốc là nó đấy 1 triệu.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this tutorial bite for Oxygen Not Included, which is all about how to include the oxygen. I will cover early oxygen production, self-powered oxygen machines or SPOMs, and how to manage carbon dioxide. Obviously, you'll need oxygen to keep dupes alive, and normal dupes need 100 grams a second, or 60 kilos per cycle, to breathe. Dupes with a diver's lung trait consume 25% less, so 75 grams per
thì nó nói nó bảo cũ nói gì
Dupes with dupes need 100 grams. Obviously, you'll need oxygen to keep dupes alive, and normal dupes need 100 grams a second, or 60 kilos per cycle,
thế thôi. Nhiều khi mình nghĩ là cái này đúng mà
to breathe. Dupes with a diver's lung trait consume 25% less, so 75 grams per second, and the deep diver's lungs buff, which can be gained from neural vacilators, reduces consumption by 50% to 50 grams per second.
Giờ nó bảo là nó lấy nó
These two
lấy
traits do
tiền
stack.
đâu ra.
The mouth
thì nó còn thế còn bây giờ trong lúc này thì có khác coi như là anh vẫn bảo tồn bảo
breather trait makes dupes consume double the amount of
coi như phải đã
oxygen, and so I would highly recommend avoiding any of these dupes. The very first source of oxygen you'll get as you start the game is oxalite found near the printing pod. This will off-gas into oxygen and gives you enough time to set up your early base and oxygen production. Note that it's better to not dig this out, as digging natural tiles loses half the mass and you will lose half of the oxygen this can provide. There are 3 types of starting biome, which depends on your planetoid or cluster choice, and I'll talk through these in turn, as each has different methods of oxygen production you'll need to use. In temperate starts, oxygen is made very simply using oxygen diffusers, which consume algae that can be dug up nearby. Each diffuser can theoretically support 5 tubes, so a couple of these spread out around the base will be more than enough to get your colony theoretically support diffusers, which consume
chỗ thuê là 50 triệu một năm mà đầu tư ra nó nhìn đâu phải là cái mơ hồ đâu phải đơn giản
algae that can be dug up nearby.
Nó nói thế.
Each diffuser can theoretically support 5 tubes, so a couple
tươi tỏi nói anh Trường bác có bao nhiêu 300 triệu đủ tiền mua ống đâu phải là nghĩ nuôi
of these spread out
như kiểu là
around the base will be more than enough to get your colony through to the mid-game. So a couple of these spread out around the base will be more than enough to get your colony through to the mid-game. Forest starts are more difficult, and oxygen production here is through the oxyphone plants, which you can find around the forest biome. These can be used as wild plants or domesticated, but note that the domesticated oxyphone is 4 times more powerful to get your colony. Theoretically support 5 tubes, so a couple of these spread out around the base will be more than enough to get your colony through to the mid-game. Forest starts are more difficult, and oxygen production here is through the oxyphone plants, which you can find around the forest biome.
nói thì không nghe dân gian dân dân họ kia nhưng mà
And oxygen production here is through the oxyphone plants, which you can find around the forest biome. These can be used as wild plants or domesticated, but note that the domesticated oxyphone is 4 times more powerful, but does require water and dirt. Early on, you'll need dupes to supply this from a pitcher pump, but you can use water and dirt. Early on, you'll need dupes to supply this from a pitcher pump, but you can use hydroponic tiles to automate this once researched. The plants also need to consume hydroponic tiles to automate this once researched. The plants also need to consume carbon dioxide to make oxygen, like real-life plants, and this is the only plant to do so in the game. A domestic oxyphone makes around 31 grams per second of oxygen and consumes around 0.6 grams per second of carbon dioxide. You'll need 3.2 plants per dupe.
hết được khoảng 60 triệu tiền cám đấy đấy là thông đồng đấy cái rồi nó không tính mà 10 vạn cá thì 10 tấn cá thì lãi được bao nhiêu nếu mà cái giá thì hiện nay được tỷ 100.000 một cân tỷ thế thì trừ đi khoảng 600 triệu tiền cám thế để là câu nên họ kia đấy là thông đồng
nhút con mẹ mày cơm đi không? À,
Đi nè.
rồi thế thôi để đi tắm đây, đi tắm đi đọc kinh, đọc sách.
Cái này bị bở.
Or 16 plants for 5 tubes. For wild planting of oxygen and consumes around 0.6 grams per octofern makes 5 plants, and this is the only plant to do so in the game. A domestic octofern makes around 31 grams per second of oxygen and consumes around 0.6 grams per second of carbon dioxide. You'll need 3.2 plants per tube, or 16 plants for 5 tubes. For wild planting, you'd need 13 plants per tube. In the Spaced Out DLC, the swamp biome has polluted mud which is used in the sublimation station to produce polluted oxygen. In the Spaced Out DLC, the swamp biome has polluted mud which is used in the sublimation station to produce polluted oxygen that tubes can breathe. This is certainly less convenient than the other two starts, as whilst breathing polluted oxygen will keep tubes alive, it will also give them the yucky lungs depuff. Tubes will consume 30% more oxygen and cough periodically when affected by this. Once researched, you can use deodorizers to convert the polluted oxygen to oxygen, which avoids this issue. Each sublimation station can support 6 tubes when converted to oxygen, or 5 when not, due to the yucky lungs consumption increase. Once researched, you can use deodorizers to convert the polluted oxygen to oxygen, which avoids this issue. Each sublimation station can support 6 tubes when converted to oxygen, or 5 when not, due to the yucky lungs consumption increase. For all the starts, these early methods are inherently limited, as they rely on limited resources. Algae or polluted mud, or a limited number of oxyfern seeds, which cannot be reproduced. I should mention here the rust deoxidizer. This also requires rust, which is a limited mineable resource. Therefore, all long-term oxygen production has to be done with electrolyzers, which only consume water, but can be renewably captured from water or steam geysers. I'll explain how to do this in another tutorial bite. Electrolyzers take 1 kg per second of water and split this into an 8:1 ratio of oxygen to hydrogen. Of course, the oxygen is used for your dupes, and the hydrogen can be consumed in hydrogen generators, which offset the power cost. I'll run through the basic setups before getting on to the SPOM. So the first implementation you might try is to use 2 gas pumps and a filter in an enclosed room. By splitting the oxygen and hydrogen in the filter, you can ensure the outputs are correct. One of the disadvantages to this is that the pumping efficiency is reduced when packets of oxygen and hydrogen can't merge in the pipes. But the main issue is that the gas filter requires significant amounts of power, which makes this system a net consumer. We need a way to remove the filter building. net consumer, we need a way to remove the filter building. In order to do this, we can take advantage of the inherent gas densities, which means the hydrogen will float above the oxygen. Placing the electrolyzers on airflow or mesh tiles allows the oxygen to fall down, where we can place gas pumps below to output this into the base. At the top, there's a gas pump connected to 2 element sensors, which means the pump will only run when hydrogen is detected on both. By removing the gas filter building, this system is now power positive, and it is a basic type of SPOM, or self-powered oxygen machine. But we can make this better still by using a 1-tile high gap filled with hydrogen, as I'll demonstrate in the next build. And moving straight on to that, this is the final form of the SPOM using this trick. More experienced players may recognise these two builds as the Half Rodriguez and Full Rodriguez, which are named after Nicolas Rodriguez, who created them. He then shared the designs with Francis John, who popularised them, so it's only right I give credit to both here. I should also mention that there are other designs, for example, which use small liquid packets to prevent overpressuring. The reason that I use these is that they're easy, simple and reliable, and if you need more oxygen production, you can just build more. I'll focus here on the Half Rodriguez and touch on scaling this up to the Full Rodriguez. As I was saying, this design uses a 1-tile high gap of hydrogen, which acts as a mechanical filter. Because hydrogen is lighter than oxygen, it will never get displaced in this gap, ensuring only hydrogen comes through the top pump and oxygen through the bottom pumps. The implementation is otherwise very straightforward, and notice that the doors are simply for making access easier, but you could use tiles instead. Looking at the ventilation overlay, this design has 1 pump for hydrogen and 4 for oxygen. The oxygen pumps should be connected in pairs, as they each produce 500 grams per second, and the gas pipe capacity is 1 kilogram per second. I would advise not to run the gas pipes over one of the pump outputs, but instead join the pipes together as shown. In practice, the Half Rodriguez produces around 1.5 kilograms per second of oxygen, enough for 15 normal dupes. Oxygen lines can be run into your base area, and I like to distribute them using normal gas vents in each room. These overpressure at 2 kilograms per tile, which is a perfect pressure for your dupes, and so requires no further control. Another benefit is that soot docks are easily fed from these lines. For the hydrogen output pipe, I send this to infinite storage in the late game. You can check out the tutorial pipe for infinite storage linked in the card. Before this is set up, you can consume the hydrogen locally with 2 hydrogen generators, and I typically just run the gas pipe straight into these. You could include a gas reservoir to store a fuel reserve if you wanted to. Power is an interesting topic, and I like to use heavy watt wire and connect it directly into the SPOM, and then keep this on the high power side of my grid. That's why my implementation of this uses a heavy watt joint plate in the centre. For the Half Rodriguez here, you can run everything from a single conductive wire, but it's really up to you. One of the benefits of this design is the fact that it's power positive. I've run some tests and found that it produces around 450 watts if all the oxygen is consumed. The liquid plumbing is very simple, and the electrolyzers only need a water input. Beware getting the wrong liquid into these pipes though, as it will damage the electrolyzers and spill liquid on the floor. If this happens, you'll need to send in dupes to repair and mop up, and your oxygen supply will be disrupted. The last overlay to explain is automation, and here all you need to do is control the pumps with Atmos sensors. I've seen many different